Food Sick Nation, Our Obsessive Relationship with Food. Richard Hendry, copyright 2023. Author's note. In the following, I talk about hating myself, wanting to hurt myself, and why I believe we need to reevaluate our relationship with food. With that said, the feelings I speak of are not easy to overcome and not to be taken lightly. And the very real impact of obsession and addiction requires more attention than a book can provide. Which is to say, this book and its concepts are not mental health or medical advice. If you're one of the millions of people struggling with the notion of hurting themselves in any way, please put this down and get help. You do not have to be alone. National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, 1-800-273-8255. Obsession. An idea or thought that continually preoccupies or intrudes on a person's mind. Chapter 1. The Appetizer. There is nothing more destructive to our health or our planet than our sick relationship with food. Not empty calories, not GMO or hybrid foods, not chemically injected food, not coal tar coloring or known carcinogens, additives, or preservatives. Nothing. Not that you should eat any of that, but still, if you did, it would not be as big a deal. The truth is that if we had anything close to a healthy understanding of how we should be thinking about food, we'd never eat any of that shit anyway. Like someone saying you need a lot of orange juice when coming off of heroin, when if you never took a hot batch into your arm, the need for OJ would be moot. And in many ways, that is just what we do: create crisis, sickness, and obsession, and then use other poisons as a cure. Like an insane self-inflicted form of Munchausen by proxy. Eat, drink, gain, exercise, starve, punish, lose, repeat. From outside looking in, it might seem to a newcomer to our world that we are completely fucking mad. No one knows more about the cycle and how we abuse ourselves over food than me. I have been dragging around a dead, fat man for over 35 years. He's over 130 pounds of dead weight, clingy slob. Unwanted and unloved, and yet he will not go away. I have fought him, fed him, wished him dead and gone, cried over him, tried to pack him into pant sizes 2 sizes too small, and loathe us both for the first 35 years of my life. And while that is a sick and sad story, it is literally a common one, which is the most intolerable cruelty of all. I have committed to losing that part of me over and over, like a drunk making a deal with God in the bathroom on the morning after, begging for help, for the pain to go away, making promises that no sane person would ever believe. I've gone shopping, hauled a pile of pants and shirts into a dressing room, only to be overcome with flop sweat, anger, and a silent form of debilitating embarrassment as nothing fit. Alone in a 5x5 box, crying like a baby. Feeling that if I did not have so many people depending on me, I might just give up. Having to do the walk of shame as I replace the shit that I can't buy on the racks, knowing full well that everyone was looking at me, laughing at the fat guy who could not find a tent big enough for his ass. Creating a narrative in my head should someone ask me if I was all right. A few basic excuses like I forgot my wallet or I'm late for work. You know, the kind of sick shit that crazy people must do when they know they're not normal, but they're trying to fit in. Then, waddling out of the store, hearing the sounds of my own thighs rubbing together as I walk, begging for the sound to stop, to go away, lest someone hear it too. You see, I know it's happening. That's why I'm there to begin with, because all my pants have holes in there, in the inner thighs. The lasting scars of the fat and its assault on the few pairs of pants I forced myself to buy a year ago. The unseen, imaginary eyes on me burn as I head for the safety of the car. And then I find myself in the parking lot of Burger King, attempting a form of culinary suicide. How's that for real and honest confession? And to be clear, I am still in recovery. I have to work on it every day, just like an addict, to stop myself from falling back into the cycles that sought to destroy my younger life. I would spare you that if I could. And I suppose I should have put this next thing on the book cover, but this is not a weight loss book. Think of it as first contact with a person that's outside the cult that you were born into. Contact with a person just like you, yet I am not the same anymore. And again, full disclosure, I am not thin, but I am what you could be. Now, just who the hell am I? Well, by all accounts, I'm a person that hates themselves, that had a sick and obsessive dependency on the very thing that they hate. But just how did I get here? I beat this demon with knowledge, by learning shit and knowing shit, seeing the truth in the world around us, and listening to the non-stop conversations about food that is literally everywhere, 24/7, 365, pounding at us, driving it into us, pardon the pun, force-feeding it to us by everyone. And listening to those people around me when they say that they loved me, I found my love for myself there, in those that depended on me and trusted me. Later I came to understand that it was not about how I looked outside that mattered. It was what I put inside that really mattered. A thing that everyone knows in the abstract, but simply cannot come to hold as truth one. And that I could be healthy and happy, even if I never killed and buried that fat guy I was hauling around this world. Why do I tell you this? Simple. I want you to know that I'm not someone who is just selling you something. A person that read some book and lost 10 pounds once and now thinks that their personal story can be monetized and is one of importance and motivation. My only motivation is to help you, perhaps free you, and to make the point that no one else seems to make. The way we eat is not just killing us, it's killing the planet. And so that you will know what I know firsthand, what I am talking about when I say we have a sick relationship problem with food, this sick and obsessive relationship with food. And that sucks because food is important. 2. The primer. Where necessity ends and abuse begins. How important is food? Well, that's a loaded question for sure. We all know that without food we die, and on the way there, we suffer. However, where's the line between need and abuse? And how do we sort out all of the things that we've been told about from what is real and true and healthy? Past that, the impact from the world around us and the impact from our whole lives with food. From the feelings of home that food brings, the feelings that we associate with eating with family and friends, and all of the encompassing experience that is a perfect holiday meal. And beyond that, food itself has strong effects in our brain. The chemical reactions we have from ingesting food is hard to identify and even harder to give up. Ask anyone, they would gladly give up smoking over pizza. And as a past smoker, I got that wonderful experience to draw on too, both of them. Then there is the social aspect of food. Meeting people, filling time, taking a break from the workday, rewarding ourselves for a job well done or a hard day's work. There's no doubt about it. We are less food consumers than we are food users. And the truth is that while you can be sure that someone will, without solicitation, give you the good advice to quit smoking, there is no widespread disdain for whatever crap food you're eating. You would be far more likely to have a total stranger come up to you and ask you where you got that yummy-looking donut, and then tell you about their favorite pastry shop, like two junkies talking about where to buy the best drugs. And the only reason we do not look at it this way is because when everyone is getting high, no one has a drug problem. The abuse of food is normal now, legal and encouraged, which is to say, the point where need ends and abuse begins happened so long before you and I were born. That ship sailed shortly after Columbus. The point where hunger was replaced by craving is a distant, fuzzy image. We are far past that now. And while one could argue that having an abundance of food has helped us become who we are, it fed us and helped us along the way to ruling the world, in many ways it has become our cross to bear. And lastly, half of the world still goes hungry to bed every night, while we throw away millions of tons of good food every day. And yes, wasting food is a form of abuse. All offered as evidence that we have a historically strange relationship with food. We have gone from starving to needing to gluttony and waste in under 5,000 years. Yet we have never been okay with what we have. Never has the primal urge to eat, store, seek, and feed in case of famine subsided. Instead, we have changed the reasons for the importance of food. Once important to survive, now has become what one could only call a food lifestyle, or as the old cliche goes, living to eat rather than eating to live. So, now, how is food important? Well, by all accounts, it's second only to money in our culture. And as you will see, food is money, a whole shitload of it. It's so important we have 2 rooms in our home totally dedicated to it, and a few storage areas. The most expensive equipment we own surrounds food, from refrigerators to stoves, microwaves. There's over 65 appliances to cook with, and hundreds of preparation devices, as is eating, cleaning, and storage of utensils. In fact, more time and consideration in design goes into kitchen and dining rooms than any other part of the home. Bathrooms are just slapped together, and the bedroom follows one simple rule: make it big enough for a bed. But the kitchen? Time and thought. And why not? It's the big deal in the house. Some people are lucky enough to have an eat-in kitchen. That way you're never even more than a few feet away from more food. We have pantries and closets filled with dried goods, and even freezers filled to the top in the garage, and depending on the size of the home, a second wet bar with a small refrigerator in the basement or another in the garage is needed too. As if all the stores will close tomorrow when the wars start, like there will be some massive cow rapture or chicken apocalypse at any moment. We live in a world of supersonic jets, space travel, and unprecedented transportation of goods, yet we are hoarding like it is the end of times. It's troubling when you look at it this way. And this is the only way to look at it. You can try and pass it off as a personal freedom issue, but you're just kidding yourself. And here's why. As of 2020, there were over 1 million restaurants in the United States, over 63,000 grocery stores, and at least 36,000 manufacturers of food products, and a colossal 148,000 convenience stores for snacks and bad food. And those numbers are growing every year. There is a road in Florida that runs from Stuart, Florida to Miami, and there is a 50,000 square foot Publix grocery store or Winn-Dixie grocery store on that street every few miles. For 100 miles. And let's not forget that you do not need to go to any of these places to get something in your mouth. You can get hordes of bubbly sugar water and corn syrup filled candy at hardware stores, gas stations, office buildings, street vendors, flea markets, and even schools. We're the only country in the world you can get a pizza at the gym. Thanks, Planet Fitness, for being part of the problem. And to add to the standalone places that specialize in just one thing, there are 2,800 commercial bakeries and 6,000 retail bakeries in the United States. There are 11,000 ice cream store businesses in the U.S. as of 2020, and there were 37,189 coffee houses nationwide as of 2020. And while there are no hard numbers on standalone candy shops, I can tell you that we spend $3 billion a year on Halloween candy alone. And to put that into perspective, according to the American Cancer Society's website, donations are about $150 million a year, and they've invested around $5 billion in research grants since 1946. You don't think we got a problem with our priorities? When a society spends 27 times more money a year on candy for a one-day event than curing cancer in 70 years, we got problems. And those numbers are nothing compared to the $80 billion a year on coffee. It's no wonder we cannot see where healthy food use ends and obsession and addiction begins. We have 10 times the foodstuffs than we did just 40 years ago. 10 times more stuff, like combinations of foods and gums and candies and baked goods and boxed food mixes, prepared foods and frozen foods. It's an obscene and embarrassing orgy of variety, an embarrassment of riches. Hybrid foods, crops, and genetically modified food, we have over 20 artificial sweeteners. The advancement in made-up foods and foodstuffs over the last 40 years, we're second to none. And one can argue that we have also seen the largest rise in health-related issues, which might seem like one should offset the other. But has it? Let's review that. We have 20 times more gyms and fitness centers, fitness clubs, and classes than we did 40 years ago. The home exercise equipment industry is a $6.4 billion a year business. We have 10 times more health food stores and health food products available at regular stores than ever before in history, an industry worth over $186 billion a year. The vitamin and supplement industries are hauling in $46 billion on top of that a year, and the global market for alternative medicines and therapies is well over $82 billion a year in value. And during this time, we have become sicker and sicker. We have developed the absurd competing epidemics of obesity and malnutrition, and we have reduced the average life expectancy by 3 whole fucking years. Which is to say that if you thought that giving nothing but better and healthier choices, we would be healthier, the numbers do not support that. And this, more than anything else, is why I have come to the conclusions herein. We are not making the right choices. We are unable to see the compulsions we are afflicted with. We are, in fact, food users, food abusers. And while that's a simple way of saying it, one of the many truths here is that most of what we are using is at best bad food and at worst not real food at all. And we are in a constant state of needless consumption. 3. Take that out of your mouth. I have long done many lectures on needless consumables. This is a mile-long list of things that we simply do not need to live well, and in most cases, these products are not just needless, but they are horrible for us and the world we live in. In a time before this, my wife and I would go to the grocery store and simply marvel at the amount of things that find their way into not only the store, but your cart. Imposter foods, things that we should not eat, and the things that the world would never have had if anyone would have talked to us about our little problem years ago. These food imposters account for the top 10 things sold in grocery stores, and while there's not an end to that list, they represent a huge amount of money, sickness, and waste of time and human life. And on the top of that list is the one thing we are most obsessed about than any other: soda. And I'm sorry about this, but this is a completely useless industry that if it fell off the face of the earth tonight while you were sleeping, it would not matter one bit. And we would all be far healthier for it. There's no need for this product to exist at all. There is no benefit, and no one can anywhere mount a solid argument in favor of soda. People just drink it. That's it. Like it's a real and good thing. Like it's not death in a fucking can. feeding our sugar addiction, rotting our bodies from the inside out. What's incredible is that the average American is drinking about 45 gallons of soda a year. In total, that's 375 pounds of that mess passing through your system in 365 days. Over a pound of nothing but trouble a day. Even crazier is the sugar. 45 gallons total is roughly 470 cans in one calendar year. A total of 20 pounds of corn syrup a year. And it's killing us, slowly and deliberately. The soda industry is a $333 billion a year business in the United States. The most money spent on soda in the world is spent right here in the USA. We spend $1 trillion a year in healthcare insurance in America. So to put that into perspective, that soda number is 1/3 of the total money spent on health insurance in the USA. Another way of putting it is that if we all stopped buying soda, we could cover 1/3 of our healthcare insurance costs. And we would also save on total health costs from just being healthier, just because we like the taste. Think of it this way. You walk out back your house every day and find your neighbor throwing money on an open fire. When you ask why, they look at you and say, "Because I like the way it looks and smells." This product should have a label on it that states, "Warning, this product is needless, useless, costly, and harmful. Consume at great risk." The question is not even why we do it, it's really more, why won't we stop? There can be no one anywhere in this country by now, like smoking, that does not know that soda is bad for you. There's no dental condition in the country called milk mouth, but we have an epidemic of Mountain Dew mouth in areas in this country, where people consume so much of this poison that it rots their teeth, where kids drink it before their adult teeth come in. Toddlers get it in their sip cups. How is this possible? Because we like the taste, duh. In 1910, there was a doctor's study that said that no one should drink more than 1 bottle of soda a month. Back then, doctors were smoking in the offices, and even they knew that soda was bad for you in every way. Plus, the obvious thing was, why would you drink it at all? It was a drink that was a drug. The public either doesn't know this or doesn't remember that Coca-Cola was once a drink that contained real cocaine. And while it's been suggested that it was a small amount, that's like saying you're only a little pregnant. Until 1929, the original soda company was getting people hooked on their product with the use of a slight amount of cocaine. And I tell you this so that you're not confused and maybe think that once the drink was okay, but now it's gone bad. It was always bad, and it always will be. Until 1929, they infused the drink with a Schedule II narcotic. After they were forced to remove it, they replaced it with caffeine, slightly less addictive, slightly less of a stimulant in these amounts. All to make you want more of something you had no need for, no use for, and contained no possible benefit for you. And it was, in fact, due to the sugar and stimulants, bad for you. A fluid you could put in your body and it would cause you to be dehydrated. Nothing has changed, except they have soda in elementary schools now. There are hundreds of these things on our daily diet, hundreds of them, these needless consumables. I like to start with soda because it's a flashpoint for the conversation that follows, and here's why. You've already started a defense to my argument. It is happening. And the reason for this is, you're hooked. Face it, we are not in elementary school anymore, so the argument, because that's why, will not do. This is not an adult reply to a question of why we do these things, eat these things, and make ourselves sick. A simple, I will do whatever I want seems better, a more adult retort. However, under closer examination, you will see what you are eating, what you are craving, and the massive amount of needless crap you eat is not what you want. Let me say that again. The massive amount of crap that you eat is not what you want. It's what you have been influenced and programmed to want. And in a sane world, that should piss you off. It makes me mad. You should also know that I'm standing in the biggest empty room in the universe when I talk about soda. I'm all alone in here. There are a few ancillary causes in the parking lot of the building that this room is in, like the minimalists and conservationists, but even they are not ready to let soda go. Shit, even vegans drink soda. Truly, they are bad vegans, but still. Even my wife, the love of my life, a natural food consultant, holistic chef, cookbook author, and natural living advocate, does not agree with me on the nuke the Coke plan. And that is frustrating, because the shit is deadly. No joke. But the resistance is strong. And the reason is programming. Impact and influence since birth. All known authorities allow it in moderation. And she likes it. Recently I moved to Louisville, Kentucky, the bourbon capital of the country. We went to lunch and the server suggested an old-fashioned cocktail made with their house booze and finished with vanilla. The sales pitch was epic and my wife got one. She'd never had one in her life. She hated it. Why? Not because it was poison, not because it went against everything she knows to be true and tells others not to do. Nope. She did not like the taste. And that's why soda and the litany of other needless food imposters win. Taste. Taste over health. Taste over need. Taste over life. And most of all, my loving and educated wife believes in the worst of all lies perpetrated on the humankind by half-witted authorities. All things in moderation. 4. Who is moderating the moderation? Forgive me the slight nod to the graphic novel The Watchmen, but really, just who in the good hell decides what moderation is? Where is the chart, graphs, or meter? And just where on the human body is the red light that lights up when you've had your safe limit of shit? Nowhere. That's where. The phrase, everything in moderation, should be removed from the goddamn language, along with other ugly and stupid oxymoron sayings like, a little is okay. Is it? Here again, we live in a world where your phone is keeping time based on a feed from a strontium atomic clock at the National Institute of Standards and Technology, which is so precise that it will neither gain or lose 1 second in about 5 billion years of continuous operation. Yet, you are accepting this nonsensical measurement from professionals who are in charge of the only life you get. A little? Just what the hell are we talking about? No one has a measuring cup wherever the recommendations came from. Just what is this a little suggestion is based on? What science is there to say a little consumption of needless and wasteful and dangerous food is okay? Who does such research, and for what possible sensible reason? No one. It's just something people say. It's like saying, I ate some and it didn't kill me. Yet, there it is, and you have heard it all your life, and you have repeated it too, and this is just one of many stupid concepts competing for the most dangerous stuff people say to each other award. This absurd notion is based on many a sick thing, not least of which is the treat theorem. The dangerous use of food or junk as a reward for something, and this is the road you travel on to hell. The madness that consumes us, pun intended, all of us. The reward system of food is a feedback loop of deadly proportions. If moderation is hard to moderate, limiting reward enticement is impossible. In the world where we are told that we deserve a break today, that when we are at some fake old world restaurant being served garbage versions of Italian food, that we are family, and where every meal, it would seem, is a precursor to a treat. Just how are we supposed to walk back this little black hole of stupid? This most insidious matrix of all. An insane and confusing place where eating out is a reward. Then you have a reward at the end of that, which is to eat something even worse than the crap you already ate. Sure, some of this is hung over from when we were told we could not have any pudding until we ate our meat. But a meal out was a treat itself when we were young. But with one restaurant for every 334 men, women, and children in this country, clearly moderation in dining out has sailed away too. We live a reward lifestyle. We are trained to. Everybody gets a reward. Everybody gets a trophy. Everyone's entitled to dessert after every meal, unless it's breakfast, and then the treat is the goddamn meal. I mean, if you think that donuts, sugar-filled cereal, muffins, danishes, pancakes, French toast, waffles, and baked goods are not a treat, you're reading the right book. And these breakfast things are just a few of the hundreds of things that we never had in abundance years gone by. We have food today as a treat that just 80 years ago, you had a hard time finding anywhere. Ice cream, for instance, was a delicacy. A real honest-to-goodness treat. You couldn't get it all the time. In every store, in every restaurant, everywhere in the country. And as such, people from that time were not born or raised in a world of free-flowing rivers of frozen cream. Even after the rivers flooded, those people ate the amounts of those treats that they were trained to eat their whole life. Truly eating in moderation. My father used to eat an ice cream about every 2 months. If he was still with us, he'd be about 88 this year. He was not affected by the massive amounts of stuff. He just followed the patterns of his young life, the environmental training of his upbringing. We do the same thing. The only difference is now it is bigger on an order of magnitude than ever in the history of history. And the narrative of the day, just like the one my father heard, underpins and supports the matrix of the day. I was at Kroger in Louisville just the other day. They had 20 doors, 6 shelves high of frozen ice cream buckets, pints, bars, and tubs, plus 5 pallets sitting in the walkway to be stocked. We have one grocery or convenience store for every 1,500 men, women, and children in this country. And if you're following the math, it's staggering. If we ate ice cream like my father and his contemporaries did, there would be 6 servings per year, not tubs or pints. Servings. But let's call it ice cream in general an ice cream. 6 ice creams per year. Now let's remember we have one store for every 1,500 people in the country. And if they all ate ice cream every 2 months, that would be 750 ice creams sold per month per store, 9,000 a year per store. The last thing you need to know is that the average inventory turns, that's the time they sell out everything on the shelves, in grocery is about 9 to 12 turns a year. Kroger had 500 facings of ice cream products. They were 4 to 6 deep per slot, about 4,000 pieces on hand, on a random Tuesday in May. And their expectations is to then move at least 48,000 units per year. These units are often multi-packs or gallons, which provide the buyer with 6, 8, 12 servings per unit. Taking the medium of 8 servings, that's upwards to 384,000 servings per year per store, or 256 servings per year per person. That's 42 times more than my father used to eat. Now you only have 2 options here. One, that Kroger, the biggest grocery chain in the country, are fools and buying and throwing away ice cream in it all the time. Or 2, they stock to meet the demand. And if you're a stockholder for Kroger, you know the answer. Your average racetrack gas station is holding 300 to 500 pieces of ice cream on hand. It's everywhere. Christ, there's a company out there now that puts mini stores and hotels in the USA. 56,000 hotels like Holiday Inn Expresses. And they stock 3 to 5 different kinds of ice cream. And that's by design, because training requires repetition. Continuous exposure and purchase reinforcement is part of that training. And that's why it's everywhere. There's too much money in it. To risk you falling away, you must be trained and supported in order for the products to be sold, for you to feed the beast that feeds you. There cannot be in this universe we live in today such a thing as moderation. There is nothing close to a little, like a treat every once in a while. The reward, treat, consume cycle must be trained and ingrained in your life from the very first day, with one goal. Food is no longer a thing of necessity. It is happiness. It is gratification. It is joy. And that training comes in all forms. Some of the most harmful messages come from each other. We take in this feed and then we spit it out, which is not helpful. Not every addict needs an enabler, but it sure does help. 5. Talking about food. Because of the pervasive nature of food in our culture, we talk about food a lot. It is everywhere, and it's no wonder. We are surrounded by it every minute of every day, and we repeat this information to each other over and over, day in, day out. We literally will be eating a meal and talking about the next one. We will call people or text them about a new place to eat. It's like a new theme park that opened. We talk about food in a way that once you stop doing it, it will seem like a compulsion when you hear others doing it. I wish this was not true, but it is. Food is no longer a meal or a thing we do 3 times a day to live. It's an event, entertainment, a hobby, a lifestyle. And anthropologists will tell you that this is because we spent most of our time developing tens of thousands of years ago looking for it. But today, we come by this dishonestly. The advertising and narratives about food stem from a mega industry of unbelievable size and scope. The money spent on this collection of hundreds of industries is more than the GDP of about 50 countries. The massive amount of things surrounding food is impossible to list. But some of those numbers have to be talked about. And let's start here. Food content is exploding on YouTube and generates nearly 41 billion views a month. According to a study conducted by Online Viewing, nearly half of all adults watch food videos on YouTube, and according to Google, almost 30% of the 5 billion views that were watched on YouTube every single day are food related, which means we are watching 1.6 billion videos a day about food. The Food Network's latest lineup hosts over 500 shows, food shows, on just one channel, and a couple hundred on Netflix and Hulu and other streaming services. Roughly 17.8 million cookbooks were sold in the United States in 2018. We had $6.9 billion worth of meal kits delivered to our doors in 2021. The cooking class industry is worth $2 billion a year from over 1,250 businesses employing over 15,000 people. The global culinary tourism market reached a value of $696 billion in 2021 and is expected to double by 2027. Because it's not enough to just eat and talk and live about food, we have to travel and eat and talk about food somewhere else. Food, beverage, and restaurant companies spend almost $14 billion per year on advertising in the United States. That's almost twice what the drug companies spend a year. Let me just say that again. That the food and beverage and restaurant companies spend twice in advertising what the most vilified corporate greed companies in the world, which are pharmaceutical companies, spend on advertising a year. And it's twice the amount of money spent on AIDS research a year. We spend $616 billion a year at convenience stores in the United States. Compare that to the medical research yearly. The NIH invests about $41 billion annually in medical research for the American people, and we spend 12 times that at convenience stores a year. These numbers tell a story so insane that it's impossible to explain. $47.1 billion is only a 12th of the money spent on bad snacks and roller foods. The statistics show that the U.S. food storage container market is valued at around $475 million. It's hard to continue reading it, and was forecasted to reach $570 million by 2021. That money is staggering, and it's just to store food. The home appliance industry, which includes electric or mechanical devices used in households, is a multi-billion-dollar industry. The global retail sales of major and small appliances amounted to more than $420 billion in 2020. It is estimated that the total number of world recipes is 5 trillion, and that's more recipes than there are atoms in the universe. But there's nothing wrong here. Everything is fine. The input is all-encompassing. There are hundreds of foods and cooking and recipe magazines. Even the Bible refers to food 1,207 times. Look it up if you don't believe me. There's nowhere to hide from the programming that surrounds food. And even if there was, would we be self-aware enough to realize we were addicted? All of the evidence says no. You've been listening to Food Sick Nation, Part 1. Continued in Part 2.